All right, so going to be factoring polynomials today. So last time we were multiplying them, we were putting them together. Now we're going to be taking them apart. Not quite division, but kind of a form of it, where we're splitting them back up. But before we do that, let's FOIL this. So 3x and 5x would make 15x squared. 3x and 3 would be a minus 9x. 4 and 5 would be a plus 20x. And 4 and a negative 3 would be a minus 12. So, like terms can put together. We have our 15x squared. Negative 9, positive 20 makes a plus 11x. And then minus 12 for the end of it. So, what we're looking for is we're taking this apart. So the first thing you should always look for is any common factors. So think the distributive property in reverse. Is there a number or a variable that we could pull from each term to simplify it right off the bat? So like if we had AB plus AC, well, they each have an A, we could pull that A out front, and that would be pulling that common factor. So looking here, I could pull a 9 out, and they both have an x squared. So that's the common factor I'm pulling out. So really what you're doing is you're dividing that out of what term is there. So 18 divided by 9 is there's going to be 2 left. And if I take x to the third and divide out x squared, I just have an x. Here I would get plus 3. And that'd be it because I already pulled the x squared out. Now, this one here, it's not just going to be a single thing that we're pulling out. They both have an x plus 3. So that's going to be our common factor there. Well, what's left? Well, what's left is x squared plus 5. And this is really the basis of what we're going to get into here next with factoring by grouping. So typically if we have more than 3 terms, if it's just 3 terms, a lot of times you're going to try to just do the 2 sets of parentheses, factor it out like normal, or at least what we're used to doing, which we'll do here a little more in a little bit. But if there's more than 3 terms, think of by grouping, especially by 4 here. What it means by grouping is you're going to group the first 2 together, the last 2 together. And you're going to look for, what common factor do I have out of these 2 up here? Well, I have an x squared. Well, if I pull x squared out, I'd have x plus 4 left in there. So then I look at, okay, what can I pull out of this one? Well, I can pull a 3 out. And it's a positive 3 that I'm pulling out, so plus 3. So what did that leave me? Well, it leave me with x plus 4 left. Now, when you do factoring by grouping, it's really important to have these, what's in parentheses here, these factors to be the same. If it's different, look for something else to pull out, because these need to be the same to make this work. And then we're doing just like what we did up here. We put the common factor then to the front of x plus 4. And the rest gets grouped together into its own set of parentheses. And that's it. Now, something to check, especially if there's an x squared, see if this can break down further. Always check for that. Now, in this case, x squared plus 3 isn't going to break down any further, but always look for that. So, when we're factoring those trinomials, you're going to start by putting 2 sets of parentheses, and you're looking for this first part here. What 2 factors would give me that? And that's going to go first in those parentheses. Then you're going to look at that constant and look for what factors can give me that. Now, as far as the sign goes, if that last number there, that constant is negative, then the signs are going to be one's a plus, one's a minus. If it's positive, then you look at the middle term. And whatever that sign is, both of them are going to be. So if that middle term is positive, they're both positive. If it's negative, then they're both negative. And then you're looking for that right combination to make the bx when you would say FOIL it back out to make that work. So looking at this one here, we're going to start with 2 sets of parentheses. So factors of x squared. Well, the only 2 factors are x and x. So that has to be what we go with here. Now, from there, what I like to do is I really like to look at the signs next. So this is a plus. So when that's a plus, I look at the middle, and that'll tell me what both of them are. So this is a plus, this is a plus. So now I'm looking at, okay, what factors of 8 will give me 6 when I add them together? Since they're both the same sign, they're going to be added together. Well, if I do 4 and 2, 4 and 2 would be 6 if I add them together. But if I times them, I get 8. So there we go. Now, right now, all we're doing is factoring. We're not solving for anything. So this is as far as we have to take this. So again, start with 2 sets of parentheses. I look at my first term, it's x squared, so it has to be x and x. I look back here. Well, this one's a minus, so that means 1's plus, 1 is minus. So now that tells me that, hey, the factors of 18 that I'm looking for, if I subtract them, I have to get the middle. Now, the middle is positive, so the bigger one has to go with the plus, and the smaller one will be the minus. So factors of 18, if I do 3 and 6, that's a difference of 3, but if I multiply them, I get my 18. So because middle one's bigger, or middle one's positive, the bigger one's positive, and the other one would be 3. Okay. Now, if we start getting into, say, one like this, there's more than one thing we could do to get 8x squared. We could do 1 and 8, we could do 2 and 4. So I'm going to go back here. 3 is the only number I have, so it has to be 1 and 3, which are the only two factors of 3. So I'm looking for ways to kind of simplify this down instead of playing that guessing game of, does it fit? Next, I'm looking at, okay, I have a negative here, which means 1's positive, 1 negative. So I look at this middle, and it's negative as well. So I'm going to guess the 3 has to be negative, and the 1 is going to end up being positive. So that's just me going, okay, I have to get it to be more negative, so odds are the bigger number has to be the negative. So now I'm down to just the 8x squared. So I need combinations with these other two factors to get a negative 10. Now, because they're opposite, we're subtracting the 2. So 3 times something with an x is going to be subtracted away from 1 times something with an x. So I need a bigger number to go with a 3. So I'm going to go 4x and 2x. Well, if I check it, 3 times 4 would be a minus 12x. And 1 times 2 would be a positive 2x, which gives me a negative 10x. So that fits. That fits that middle. Okay. Now, there could be more than just one set of where we have variables going on here. So here we have x's and y's. But it still factors out the same way. So 2x squared. Well, the only combination there would be a 2x and an x. 3y squared, my only combination would be y and 3y. Now, I'm going to look at my signs next. So this is a plus, so I look here, that's a minus, so they're both going to be minuses. So how can I arrange the y and the 3y in order to get 7xy? Well, if I put 3y here, the 2x and the 3x would give me a 6, and a y here would be another xy that would add to it. 6 and 1 makes my 7. Now, there are certain types of deals that work out to be really nice, I should say. But there are special cases where one of these here is the difference of 2 squares. So if we notice that we have a number squared minus a number squared, it's going to factor out to be a plus b, a minus b. So this is one that you want to look for of, hey, these are two numbers that are squared. There's a difference of them. This is what it's automatically going to split out. It's going to help us make it a little easier. So like here, x squared and then minus 4. This is really looking at x being squared minus 2 being squared. So while you're not going to have to write the step out, but just picture it as, okay, x is being squared, 4 is being squared, well, it was 2 that was squared to get the 4. So we have squares going on here. So I can rewrite this as x plus 2, x minus 2. Because it was x that was squared and 2 that was squared in order to get our x squared and 4. So here we have 81x squared minus 49. So what really is being squared here? Well, in this first one, it's really 9x that's being squared. And in the second one, it's really 7 that's being squared. So when I write this, I'm doing 9x plus 7 and 9x minus 7. Now, when you're doing these, watch out for repeated factors. So that's where you always want to check, hey, are these broken down enough, or can I break them down further? So here, really what's being squared is x squared and 9. So that would give me x squared plus 9 and x squared minus 9. Well, x squared minus 9 is really x squared minus 3 squared. So that's another set of difference of squares that we can do. And so we end up with x squared plus 9, x plus 3, x minus 3. So that's where I'm talking is see if you can break these down further. X squared plus 9 isn't a difference of squares, so it can't go further. This one is, so this is what it would break down to be. All right. Now, if it's a perfect square trinomial, so say a plus b squared or a minus b squared, it'll be in this here form where it'll look like the first term is squared, the last term is squared, and the middle is twice of the first and last term that was squared added together or times together. So what I'm talking about is like this. So we have x here that's squared, we have 3 here that's squared, and the middle is saying 2 times x times 3. So that's where it's fitting that form, and so we know that it's going to go to x plus 3 squared. So again, you're not going to have to write all this out, but this is just kind of demonstrating where that's coming from. So here, well, I have 5x that's really being squared, and I have 6 that's being squared. Now, notice here the middle is a minus. If the middle is a minus, that's where you're going to have 5x minus 6 squared. If the middle is a plus, it's a plus in the square as well, the perfect square. Minus in the middle, minus for the perfect square. All right. Now, just a way to check it, 5x and 6 would be 30. If I double it, I get my 60x. Now, if it's cubes, these are going to be things that you're going to want to write down on your note card when time comes for the test. Because these are the forms that you're going to have to follow when you're doing those. So x to the third plus 8. So this is really saying x being to the third plus 2 being to the third. So when I write this out, I'm going to go x plus 2 in a set of parentheses. And then, so a squared, which would be x squared, minus ab, so 2x, plus b squared, so plus 2 squared, which is 4. And that's what I'll factor to. You can't break this down even though it's a trinomial. It doesn't come out to anything nice. So here. Now we're a difference of cubes. So really what's being cubed here is 4x is being cubed and 5 is being cubed. So when I write this out, I go 4x minus 5. So following this here formula. Then it's the first one squared, so 4x would be 16x squared. And then it's plus, so 5 times 4 would be 20x. And then 5 squared would be plus 25. So again, you're just following the two formulas when you're doing these, when you're factoring them. All right, when you have that difference or sum of cubes. So generally when you're doing this, first thing you should always check for is, do I have a greatest common factor? Factor it out right off the bat. That'll make it less complicated, make it easier to factor out. If it's a binomial, check to see if it's a special form. Is it a difference of squares? Is it a sum or difference of cubes? If it's a trinomial, is it a perfect square trinomial? If there's 4 or more terms, can I make it, can I factor it by grouping? Otherwise, can I just factor it into 2 terms or 2 or more terms there? Can I factor it further? So, looking here, we want to group this 2 different ways. So, we have an x, we have an a, we have another x, we have a 16. So, I want to make a trinomial that I can break down right off the bat. So, I'm going to rewrite this as x squared plus 8x plus 16. And then the minus 25a squared. Well, if I get to looking at this, this is a perfect square. This is going to go to x plus 4 squared over minus 25a squared. So x is squared. If I square 4, I get 16. And if I take 4 times x and double it, I get my 8x. So perfect square here. Now, we now have something squared minus something squared. So that should be your light bulb of, is it a difference of squares? Well, yes, it actually is. So when I write this, I have x plus 4 as my first one. This here is really saying 5a being squared. So plus 5a, and then x plus 4 minus 5a. So this is the term that's squared, the x plus 4. And then 5a is really what's being squared back here, so difference of squares. So this is the first term minus the second, first term plus the second over here. Now, you're probably looking at this going, how the heck do we do this? Well, I would say very carefully. But really what we're going to do here is we're going to pull out a common factor of x plus 1 to the negative 3/4. And here's why. One is generally we don't like fractional exponents. They're harder to work with. Let's try to get rid of them by pulling them out front here. Well, what would be left? Well, in this first part, just an x. Everything else we're pulling out. Over here, though, it gets a little more complicated. So if you think about when we really pull out a term, it's really like saying x plus 1 to the 1/4 here divided by that x plus 1 to the 3/4. So really we're pulling it out, and it's a negative 3/4, sorry. When we pull it out, we're really dividing it out. Well, if we have the same base, then all we have to do is just subtract the exponents. So 1/4 minus a negative 3/4 is really like saying plus 3/4, and I get a 1 over 1. Well, 4 over 4, which is 1. That's where I'm going with that. So what's left over here then is just plus x plus 1 to the first. Well, anything to the first power we can drop. And now, hey, we can drop these parentheses. And so we're going to be left with x plus 1 to the negative 3/4. Parentheses, I have an x and an x to make this 2x plus 1. And there we go. Now we're factored. So that's it for this lesson. Let me know if you have any questions. Any comments, concerns, let me know. Pan me, email me, send me a message on Google Classroom. Remember, you can always pause if you need more time to write stuff down, or you can rewind and watch something over. If you miss something, you need to hear it again. Don't be afraid to do that. Otherwise, till next time, we'll talk to you later.